And we are back with the conclusion now. So, again, like last time, I think this seems pretty simple now. But last time again, I thought the ending was very simple. I did rush it because I was so certain about some things, and then the case was so complicated and or felt so complicated with all different variables and things like that. So I'll try not to do that again. But here, I really don't know what else to think. So this is how I see it going. In 1885, the Foleys stole...
The trap with the chandelier worked.
Right, so the Foleys stole the... stole the jewelry,
One of
and then they pawned it, or pawned them to Kenneth is his name, and I will actually check the names because there's a few names of people that actually weren't even here, but Kenneth. And then he betrayed them, so he bought them and then called the cops on the person who got them. Now, let me actually check one more thing. It is here, so they were stolen, sent from the British Museum, or on the way there, from the British Museum to the Fine Art Exhibition. Kenneth Butler called them, and then someone had attempted to sell them to him, so he called the cops on that guy. And they captured Vincent Foley as he was leaving. I probably had the money from the trade, perhaps, and he wouldn't tell where the rest of the stuff was, so he was sent to jail, and the treasure was never found. Now, Kenneth Butler was his name. He brought them here, the pawn shop guy. Not sure why he uses this abandoned place, but I guess it's good because nobody can get into the safe. The only problem is like if someone burns the building down or demolishes it or something like that, so he needs to keep an eye on it. Now, they've been here for 10 years, and I guess he's just waiting for things to cool off, and he's either a collector or something, or he was ready to sell them as soon as somebody popped up to buy them. So then fast forward 10 years and we're here, and Foley's the brother, Charles Foley, so it was Vincent Foley, I think. Let me just make sure. Vincent Foley is Charles Foley's brother, so Vincent is in jail. Charles Foley is still around, and he has a plan. So he's coming to London with the circus, and he's doing other schemes, I'm sure, but he had an idea that he would sell, or he would say that he's buying this treasure. And since it had been 10 years or whatever, and also the brother who was imprisoned was dead, which I think is also one factor in this. So Vincent Foley died about a week ago or something. So no one really knew, I guess, about any other people being involved in it, in the whole scheme. Maybe not even about the brother and whatever. So once he was dead, he knew that he could sell them, and I think that's how it sort of connects to everything. Maybe. I'm not sure if he was murdered or if he just died in jail. And then the brother Charles Foley saw an opportunity while he was here. So while he was here, he got an action, pretended to be the buyer, and then he knew that, or trusted that the person who was selling them would have to come here and pick up at least part of the loot. And then Charles would, of course, follow him around, and he would know where the loot is hidden. And they found that he came in here, left with whatever he had, and then they couldn't get the door open, so they needed to look for a guy. So I think the plan was for Charles to, he took the flare gun, and he prepared the, actually I need to change my mind on that a little bit, perhaps. No, I don't. No, I thought about it. There's so much to remember. So then his plan was to take the flare gun, fire it into the guys or whatever, or blind both of them or just one of them, and then take the and then rob them, basically, or rob the other dude, or knock him unconscious or whatever. He wasn't armed then, I don't think. And then he was there, he was waiting, and he was hiding, most likely, because it was dark, and these guys, or the people who made the deal probably didn't have lights, but, who knows. They went there and started making the deal, but then something happened, and I would assume, actually, I don't know. That's a problem, really, because I don't know what happened at the deal. So let me just walk through this, and I'll write down that there's a problem. So at the deal, something went wrong. I need to figure out what exactly, but I know Kenneth is he's a person who can't be trusted or whatever, so he's probably stabbed people in the back before. So Kenneth, the pawn shop owner, fired 2 shots. He fired one and missed, and then another one and hit the guy in the stomach. So that would mean that he instigated. He shot first, as in for the Star Wars meme. For whatever reason, I don't know. But then the other guy, he was only wounded, so I guess Kenneth wasn't much of a shot, and he pulled out his gun and shot Kenneth in the head. So all this time all this is happening. Charles Foley is hiding in the shadows, and he sees this happen, and he sort of has to wait for the other guy to maybe bleed out, or because he didn't finish him off really, but the other guy isn't up for a fight. So Charles Foley gets to save his flare gun, which he has with him, and he goes in, and he didn't take the jewelry. That is also a problem. So problem 1 was that, and problem 2 is he didn't take the bracelet. So if he had taken the bracelet, then the old man wouldn't have any reason to sort of go down there. But he also, if his motive was to just steal the things, then he would have stolen the things. He took the ring, but he didn't take the bracelet. So maybe because of the noise, he missed the bracelet for some reason, so that is a slight problem, but he did take the ring though. So maybe the ring was easier. Maybe the ring was on the person's finger and there was noise, so he wanted to get out of there. And after that, that's a huge problem actually in this thing, in the final result of this case, I mean. So then Wiggins' brother. So what is his name? I'll check it out. His name is Leighton Chapman, so I'll just call him Chapman. Chapman accidentally happens to stumble through. He goes in, he sees the murdering, he sees that or he sees, at least he sees a part of it. And two men on the street, and he recognized the other one, and he took the gun from the pawn shop owner. So not his friend, because his friend didn't have a weapon. It was taken by wait a minute. Okay. So the weapon wasn't taken by. The second one was already dead. He had a hole in his head. I saw that one had blood pumping out of his stomach. He was dying, so he was still alive. So this leads me to think that he was holding a gun in his hand, though. I took it and then I followed the third man. So he did have a gun in his hand. Of course, right. We already knew this. There's just so much stuff, and I have a life as well. But he had the gun, and Leighton Chapman took the other. He was holding a gun in his hand, though. Right, the dead guy was. No, right. Middle of the street, he seemed to be in some sort of panic, and then something strange happened. I told the police, they laughed at what I said, but I swear to you. I started running towards him. It was blinded by a flash. So that's, over 10 seconds to climb out. As I arrived in Whitechapel, woman screaming, caught by the police. And he had the gun of the other dude, but the other gun is gone. So there's no real evidence that that the other guy actually had a gun. The guy who, the friend of Chapman. So basic dude. So if he was unarmed and he was shot, I think maybe the guy, the brother who is lying in front of us right now, he was hiding behind the guy who was making the deal. Vincent. No, not Vincent. Vincent was a brother. Jesus fucking Christ. Well, whoever. The friend of Chapman. So he was hiding behind him, and so when he came out with a gun, but we know that he came out with a gun and the other guy started firing, and maybe he hid behind. And he shot so high up as well. So I need to figure this out. Um, so he didn't take the bracelet. Problem 3 is maybe the guy wasn't even armed. So stomach dude wasn't even armed. And then, but it sort of begs the question of why did he have the flash gun on him, or the flare gun? Because he didn't actually sort of need it. I mean, it's good to have a backup. But if he would have wanted to use it, he would have used it and then attacked, sort of. So having that gun, I think he is actually guilty of the murder now. But I mean, just say that I shouldn't rush things, but so maybe we're not in a rush. So if he came in to shoot the traitor and then take his shit, basically, and he would be the one, because he's carrying the gun now at least. So if the other guy didn't die directly from the shots, then he would be armed as well. So he would have to be disarmed by the brother, and then because we know that Chapman saw him die, so he was still alive, so he wouldn't probably give his gun to another guy if he was still alive. So I think this guy is going in for murder because he was actually the owner of the pistol, and he seems really familiar with it now, at least, because it's in his pants. So sometimes if you steal a gun, you're going to show it off too, so that doesn't mean anything really. So that would mean that he came in to murder, flare gun, backup. He took the ring, but he didn't find the bracelet. Was somewhere. Maybe he didn't even know that the bracelet was with him. And then, of course, when he was looking for it, Chapman came in, so he had to leave. Does that make that? I mean, that makes sense. But they both sort of make sense. But then if he would have come in with the flare gun only, unarmed, he would have to disarm the guy who was on the ground and he was still alive, and he would have to take his gun, and he would have to, because he didn't really know that a gunfight was going to happen. But he probably knew that the other guy was armed, so maybe a flare gun wouldn't be, an amazing thing. So I'm putting him in for murder. I could spend a longer time with this, but since I feel like as I already started the video, then it's what I have to do. So next time I will spend even more time thinking about it, and then at least figure out the problems. So he has to go in for murder. Because he was, I think, as interested in killing the guy as taking his shit and then coming here to take all the other stuff. No one would be the wiser, really, if he had not been caught. Making the escape with the rope, I think it makes sense also. If you're going to murder or not, it makes sense that you're going to use the rope to get away, because then there's no evidence of anybody being there anyway. So if you're already planning for that, then it makes sense. So we're gonna condemn him, not because we're angry, but because he actually did it.
Charles Foley, you committed the crime of premeditated murder and of theft. You will be severely punished for your deeds.
You are Pitiful. You Scotland Yard dog.
Save your words for the gallows. I'm sure the journalists will love them. I shall leave now, Watson. Gentlemen, please take our friends here into custody.
Where are you going?
I have unfinished business. I'll see you at Baker Street.
Be careful with the lamps. Don't bring them too close to the barrels.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Who's there?
That is of no importance. What matters is who you are, and the plans that you have here.
So you can stop us from carrying them out?
Eventually, yes.
Hey, careful. You'll blow us all up.
I'm listening.
We are a group known as the Merry Men. But I suppose you knew that already. We are the men who've already lost everything of value in their lives. We are ruined shopkeepers. We are workers who were fired from their jobs. Honest people who were robbed. We were forced out from our homes and thrown onto the street. And all of this in the name of the so-called law. The laws that were set out by our government. The laws that make the commoners only more vulnerable and the wealthy more protected. We are not only from the British Empire. Some of us are from the New Lands, America, Australia, and we are many. But men we are still, and we are merry for that we stopped being afraid. For those powers that be had done their best to plant the fear inside our souls, and we accepted it so easily. The fear advised us to keep our heads bowed. It prevented us from fighting. Bankers and politicians, they own our lives, our work, our bread, and they push us to compete between each other, just to see who may serve them better. But in the end, they are the few, so they are weak. They are nothing without their titles. We should not fear them. Our so-called masters should fear us instead. The time has come for our group to stand tall. Our great and many merry men. We are going to blow up the London Stock Exchange. No lives shall be lost. But ownerships, debts, and property titles? They shall all be destroyed. They're only papers, after all. So many people will be freed over this night.
That is a radical step to take. What result do you truly expect?
Chaos. But soon people will understand that they are free, and that they don't belong to anyone. They will be able to work for themselves, together, without letting the rulers dictate what to do, and finally justice will arise.
What you are intending to do is a crime. It is not justice.
How do you see justice then? Kids go to prison for a loaf of dry bread. And how many lords do you see punished for stealing from their people? Sending them to their deaths in mines or overseas to fight for land? Our masters wouldn't hear us. So now it's time to sing the song of the merry men. Will you let us do our duty?
Well, to be honest, I would. Because, if it's unclear to anyone, I feel that there is, when there's, a decency in people, in the general populace, and they really try hard, and they keep getting squeezed into, a smaller and smaller, call it playground, and it's being done, or things are being taken for no real reason at all. Like, if things are desperate for everyone, then there's no reason to make more problems or cause more problems. But if things are problematic for, a large populace, and in all likelihood most people, and you've tried to do things, but you've tried legal framework, but the legal framework itself is working against you constantly, then in the end there really is no other way to do anything except to fight it somehow. Now, You can fight it by, starving, but nobody cares. You can go on hunger strike, but nobody cares. And you can quit your job, but then someone else who's also desperate will take it. So you can have 10 honorable people, and then one person will take their place, most likely. So you always need to, you would have to have a lot more people who are sort of ready to sacrifice everything, or then just try to get by. So I don't think that's it might happen depending on how bad things get, but most likely things are being kept in a chaotic level of that there are still people who are, let's say, desperate enough, and then also who see an opportunity to maybe make it. And then of course you need to sow selfishness is one of the things that you need to sow. You can't have the people unite and start protecting each other and fighting for each other, and you can't have things like that. So that being said, welcome to America, basically, where people have no opportunities. They're constantly being taken from them for no reason at all, because the United States could be an awesome place to fucking live, and it's based on greed, selfishness, and not working together, not cooperating, and sort of being ignorant as well, which is a total disaster of a combination of things. And I'm speaking generally, and then all it takes is really is selfishness. That's like the only thing that you really need to push forward. But then there are people who aren't selfish no matter what, so you need to push in fear. You need to make people afraid. You need to make them desperate, and you also need to make them ignorant. And when you do all these attacks on a populace, then one thing wouldn't work. But when you do all of them, it's going to create so much troubles that there really isn't anything people can do. And then you can see it in many ways in let's say the places that are more stable in America. Those places are usually they're not very highly popular or densely populated, and they sort of shove people out of the way in a sense. So things are sort of good, but then the selfishness of those areas is really high. So people want to have the freedom to choose to help people rather than have it sort of be a government thing. But then that means that they will help people who are easy to help, and they won't help people who are sort of difficult to help, or it will be a bigger challenge, or the thing is more it's not that simple to help someone. So that's what happens there. And then you have the other direction where people are sort of doing everything except, like California, people are doing everything except the right thing or the proper thing. So they are saying that we shouldn't jail people, and prison sentences and things like that is the reason that bad things happen. So they take away prison sentences, so they create chaos and they create desperation through that. Because of course you need to put people in jail, because if you don't put people in jail, I think it was in New York, it was that if you would imprison a few hundred people who are repeat offenders, the crime would go down by more than half, basically. So that's another way of doing it. So in any case, long story short,
When the law serves only the few, it can no longer be trusted. Every man is equal, and he has a right to choose his own way. I shall not stop you.
Yeah, so everything I said summarized into one paragraph by Sherlock. Now, the problem...
So, you're interested in Russian literature now?
Quite, lately.
It is an interesting book. I remember a few lines.
Really? I tried reading it myself, but I had a hard time understanding it.
Yes, Doctor. It's about intelligence. Sherlock, I vaguely recall one of the lines. Sometimes it takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. There were also a few words along the lines of, pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. Tell me, Doctor, does my brother show any signs of pain or suffering?
Not that I know of.
Because you see, Doctor, behind all of his masquerade, my brother does possess a deep heart. So deep that he does not recall where he places his love.
Well, I'm sure that...
His love and his duty that, in the first place, should be directed towards the Empire. For without it, we would be nothing. A country filled with uncivilized men. I should leave now. Sherlock, Dr. Watson.
Holmes, what just happened? What was that?
The start of a new world. Anything in the post, Watson? Any clients worthy of our attention?
Only a second reminder from Mrs. Hudson about our new neighbor. She urges you to remove your...
Oh, I don't care about that.
Holmes, the lady who will be moving in shortly has requested the use of our spare room to place all of her boxes.
Wait, what? A lady?
Right, so as a final sort of take on that, I, of course, didn't think about how honest the guys were, so they might have just murdered, hundreds of people. But because it's not real life, I allowed them to bomb the stock exchange to create enormous chaos. But like said before, I feel that it is the responsibility of... It's like if you corner a cat for no reason, or an animal, and they start, attacking you, then it's really the person's fault. So if you create a situation where bad things will happen, then the reason for me allowing the bad thing to happen when I could have stopped it was the reason that the bad thing was happening in the first place. So if it wasn't happening and these guys were like complete idiots, I would have happily stopped it from happening. And that's how a good society in a way works, where you give everybody a chance, and then the people who, let's say, are beyond help, you try to take care of them, and then the people who are still left to try to do bad things, then you can basically have a lot of people being against them, because there's no real, true, intelligent motivation behind their actions. Now, the reverse of this is that things go bad for everyone, and then regardless of people, and then people get angry and they take it out. Like I said, if they start taking it out on everyone, then again, it's nobody squeezing them into a tight spot. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. Let's accept the decision. And this doesn't seem to work anymore. It worked for the first ones, but recently it doesn't work. I'm not sure why, but I would imagine it is because of some sort of thing with the game servers themselves, the game servers. So I think we can probably redo some of the, or not redo, but to see what the actual conclusions were for the right, or for all, what the right conclusion was for all of the previous, cases. And I feel that, so we can't probably, can we do things from here? Hold to check your conclusion, may spoil game experience. Okay, good. That's exactly what we want. So I will actually do it now, because it is the ending for the whole game. And we can, so here I think John Nelligan was framed and Liam Hurtley was the only person who was responsible. So, but when I chose it the first time, it was Liam Hurtley and John Nelligan, and I don't think he did it. So I think it said hold space if I read correctly, so I'm holding it now, but maybe hold to check your conclusion, may spoil, right. So the two murderers was wrong, but we know Liam Hurley did it. I would love to see the, I think we can redo the maybe the endings directly, that would be good. Riddle on the rails. The Mexicans drowned the Chileans. So this wasn't entirely a fair case for me because I had already played it before, and then I think, well, eventually the evidence sort of, I just did something because there was so much evidence and I had to assume a lot, but you know, whatever. Garrow's silver knife was completely wrong. It was planned out from the beginning by the other dude, and he had even planned out that the guy would leave and answer his sister, but I couldn't follow up on it and things like that, and that's how I think. That's how I think it ended. So it was the not the owner, but the other guy with the ice knife, and he had the golden key in his hand to sort of make. And also one of the things, I can't remember if I mentioned it, but he left, Garrow left the glasses on the fire. Now, he wouldn't probably do that if he wasn't in a panic. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but I sort of ignored it because it's one of those things where it's like, well, he left them there just because, you know. But when you start thinking about it more, and when you, of course, when you know the answer, it's easier to figure out where you're wrong. Then the Abbey Grange affair, and I think, yeah, I got it right. And this, I think, was the only one that I actually got right from start to finish, totally blind, by myself in it, and everything made sense, really. This one, Albert is an accomplice, was wrong. And I think he wasn't, but then who was, I really don't know. Or if there even was one. And Foley's Vengeance, I think, well, this one was also correct. I don't know about the moral choice, really. Well, conclusion, Foley's Vengeance. So I think the other one could have been Foley's Theft or whatever. So maybe that's the thing. So let's see now if we go to the main menu. And I don't want to, I want to start them over. Actually, maybe, I'll leave it at that. because I will probably Google the endings for the right endings for the things that I missed. But let me just press continue because the sound is really loud. So I will Google them myself and then leave them at that. And I guess that's it. I actually enjoyed the game very much. It was very sort of prolonged with me sort of explaining things a lot. And I sort of started getting the hang of everything, like just recording and editing the basics, and then found a proper editing tool during this, and then sort of got into the taste of making videos again since a long time. And I will definitely be playing another game right after this, but I don't know if it's a Sherlock Holmes game. I think a shorter game would be nice, and then I have another Sherlock Holmes game, at least one to get into. And I feel like it would be a really good thing for me to carry it on, because I feel like I'm sort of because I'm not really good at this kind of stuff, or I never have been. I've never read any, crime novels or things like that, and I've never really cared enough about stuff like this, in a sense where I don't think that I sort of I think this falls into the category of knowing your enemy, in a sense, where it's a good thing, but I always sort of just ignored logic games and things like that because I don't play them. So, but it is very good to know what you're sort of. Well, it's good to just reach your potential in something that's relatively useful, at least, or gives you a good feeling. But that said, I will figure out what else to do next time, and either it will be Sherlock Holmes, or then it will be something else. I have a lot of different options, I feel. So I will see you there whenever it is, and whatever it is.